Your move.
I see it.
Bold.
Check.
What? Care for a game?
Me. All right, you're on.
White or black? Black. I like the challenge.
The first thing people noticed was her smirk, sharp, confident, the kind that said she never lost. The second thing was the challenge she dropped like a coin on a table. Beat me in chess, the CEO said, tapping the board with a manicured nail, and I'll marry you. Laughter rippled through the charity gala, silk dresses swaying, champagne glasses chiming. She expected a show. She didn't expect the quiet single dad across from her to sit down, roll up his sleeves, and end the game in 3 moves. What no one saw, what kept them watching to the very last second, was that the real checkmate had nothing to do with chess. He hadn't planned to be there. Daniel Ortiz had come because the community center needed the donation and because his daughter's school had auctioned off a ticket he couldn't resell. He wore the same suit he'd worn to court hearings and parent-teacher meetings, sleeves a little short, shoes polished by habit more than money. He noticed the chess table only because it reminded him of evenings at the kitchen table, his daughter Lily perched on a chair too tall for her legs, moving pieces with the seriousness of a general. Chess was how they learned patience after Lily's mom passed, how they learned to sit with silence and think before acting. Across from him stood Mara Vale, the CEO whose name floated through the room like a headline. She had built a tech empire on speed and daring, on winning before others realized there was a game. The smirk was armor. The challenge was theater. "Any takers?" she asked, eyes scanning for brave egos. When Daniel stepped forward, the laughter sharpened. A single dad with a soft voice and tired eyes? This would be fun. They shook hands. Her grip was firm. His was steady. The board gleamed. Cameras leaned in. Mara opened aggressively, the way she did in boardrooms, forward, daring him to keep up. Daniel responded simply, almost gently. He didn't rush. He watched her eyes, the way they flicked when she assumed control. Move by move, the room leaned closer. On the third exchange, Daniel slid a piece forward and said quietly, "Checkmate." Silence snapped the air. Someone laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Mara stared at the board, then at him. Her smirk cracked. "Again," she said. Daniel shook his head. That was enough. The cameras caught her blink, the first real one. "Enough?" she repeated. "For tonight," he said. "And for promises you make like dares." He stood to leave, applause arriving late, confused. But Mara wasn't done. "Wait," she called, voice softer now. "What did you see that I didn't?" Daniel hesitated. The answer felt personal. "You played to win fast," he said. "I played to end it clean." Something in her face shifted. Not admiration, recognition. That night, the clip went viral. 3 moves. The smirk. The walkaway. Commentators argued about the opening, the impossibility, the stunt. Nobody mentioned the way Mara watched him leave, as if she'd just lost something she didn't know she had. The next morning, Daniel's phone buzzed while he packed Lily's lunch. An assistant's voice, polished and urgent. "Ms. Vale would like to meet you." "No," Daniel said, spreading peanut butter carefully. "Thank you." By afternoon, a handwritten note arrived at the community center. By evening, Mara stood there herself, blazer gone, hair loose, holding 2 coffees like a peace offering. "I don't chase," she said, then corrected herself. "I don't usually." Daniel didn't invite her in. He stood by the doorway where the paint chipped and the heater rattled. "What do you want?" "To learn," she said. "And to apologize. I turned marriage into a punchline. That was careless." He studied her. The armor was thinner now. "Why chess?" "My father taught me," she said. Every win felt like approval. Daniel nodded. "My daughter taught me," he said. Every loss felt like love. That was the start of it, not romance, not yet, but something honest. They met in quiet places. She asked questions and didn't interrupt the answers. He spoke about grief without dressing it up. She spoke about success without bragging, about the loneliness that comes from always being the smartest person in the room and never being known. The challenge came when their worlds collided. The press smelled a story and chased it hard. Board members whispered about optics. Parents at Lily's school stared. Mara offered solutions: security, silence, distance. Daniel listened and then shook his head. "I won't teach my daughter that love hides," he said. "Or that games decide vows." Mara flinched. Old habits died loudly. She scheduled, negotiated, optimized. He didn't budge. One evening, after Lily beat Mara at chess with a grin too big for her face, Mara laughed, a real laugh, unguarded, and knocked her own king over. "I resign," she said. That night, alone with Daniel on the balcony, city lights breathing below, Mara spoke without smirking. "I don't want a dare," she said. "I want a choice. And I want to choose you without a board between us." Daniel thought of 3 moves: patience, courage, truth. He thought of Lily asleep inside, of a life built carefully from broken pieces. "Then don't promise what you can't keep," he said. "Promise what you can grow." She nodded. No cameras. No applause. Months later, at a small park with a borrowed table and a chess set scuffed from use, Mara asked again, not as a challenge, not as a spectacle. "Will you marry me?" she said, voice steady, eyes bare. Daniel smiled, slow and certain. "I already beat you," he said. "Now I'm choosing you." The board stayed untouched. The game was over. The message lingered, strong and simple, carrying viewers to the very end. Real victories aren't about winning fast or loud, they're about knowing when to stop playing and start living. By the time dawn crept through the thin curtains of Daniel's apartment, the world had already decided who he was supposed to be now. The man who humiliated a CEO. The single dad who went viral. The mystery chess player with the calm eyes. His phone buzzed non-stop on the kitchen counter while he fried eggs for Lily, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. Because across the city, in a glass tower that reflected the sunrise like a blade, Mara Vale stood staring at the same chessboard from the gala, unable to move a single piece. She replayed the game in her head, again and again, each move like a bruise she couldn't explain. It wasn't the loss that haunted her, she'd lost before. It was how final it felt. How gently he'd ended it. No show. No ego. Just truth placed on the board and left there. For the first time in years, Mara walked into a board meeting late, mind elsewhere, confidence rattled. Her directors talked numbers, risks, optics. All she could see was Daniel standing up, choosing dignity over a headline. Daniel tried to return to normal life, but normal didn't want him back. At the bus stop, strangers whispered. At work, his supervisor clapped him on the shoulder like Daniel had won something that mattered. At night, after Lily fell asleep, he sat alone with the old chess set and realized the move that mattered most wasn't the third one, it was walking away. Because walking away had always been his hardest skill. He'd stayed too long in bad jobs, bad grief, bad silence. That night, he wondered if leaving the board had been courage or fear. Mara didn't wonder. She acted. She cancelled interviews, dodged press, and ignored advisors telling her to let the moment fade. Instead, she drove herself to the community center listed on the charity program. No cameras. No entourage. When Daniel opened the door and saw her standing there, the world shrank to the chipped paint and the hum of the old heater. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't smirking. She looked human. And that unsettled him more than the challenge ever had. Their conversations didn't sound like fairy tales. They were awkward, halting, honest. Mara admitted she'd turned life into a competition because winning was safer than feeling. Daniel admitted he'd hidden behind responsibility because loving again felt like tempting fate. They argued. They paused. They listened. And when Lily beat Mara at chess and Mara laughed instead of recalculating, something fragile but real settled between them. The real test came quietly. The board pressured Mara to cut ties. Bad optics, they said. Daniel's world warned him not to trust power dressed as sincerity. One evening, Mara arrived late, exhausted, carrying solutions instead of presents. Daniel saw it immediately and stopped her mid-sentence. He told her he wouldn't be another trophy, another headline, another game she could win and move on from. The words hurt them both. She went silent. For the first time in her life, Mara Vale didn't counter. She listened, swallowed her pride, and chose differently. That night, after Lily fell asleep and the city lights blinked like patient witnesses, Mara confessed the truth she'd never said aloud. She was terrified of losing the moment she stopped controlling it. Daniel took her hand, not to reassure her, but to stand with her in the fear. And in that quiet, without a board, without rules, without spectators, the second game began. One where no one rushed to win. One where the only victory was choosing each other, move by careful move, all the way to the end. The storm didn't arrive with thunder. It came as paperwork, whispers, and a headline that refused to die. By the third week, the story had twisted itself into something unrecognizable: power imbalance, publicity stunt, a CEO playing with a single dad's life. Daniel felt it first at Lily's school, where a teacher's smile lingered too long, questions tucked between polite words. He felt it at work when his supervisor asked, too carefully, if he was comfortable with the attention. Daniel went home that night and sat at the kitchen table, the chessboard unopened, wondering if choosing honesty had invited a fight he couldn't protect his daughter from. Mara felt it louder. Her board didn't whisper, it demanded. Emergency meetings. Legal memos. A donor threatened to pull funding. This isn't about love, they told her. It's about risk. She listened, jaw tight, realizing how often she'd mistaken obedience for loyalty. When they suggested a statement that would neatly distance her from Daniel, kind words, clean exit, she felt the old instinct surge. End it fast. Win the room. Move on. Instead, she asked for time. The room froze. Time was the one thing she'd never requested before. They argued that night, not because they wanted to, but because pressure finds the cracks. Daniel accused her of protecting the company before the people. Mara accused him of underestimating the cost of her choices. The words landed hard, then heavier. Lily's laughter from the next room stopped the argument mid-air. Daniel looked at Mara, eyes tired but steady. I won't raise my daughter in a war she didn't choose, he said. It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary. Mara went home alone. She didn't sleep. She sat at her dining table with the chessboard and tried to reconstruct the three moves, this time forcing herself to see what she'd missed. She saw it then, not a trick, but restraint. He'd offered her a way out without humiliation, and she'd chased spectacle instead. At dawn, she made a decision that would cost her more than a loss ever had. The next day, Mara stood before her board and told the truth. No spin. No distancing. She acknowledged the challenge was careless. She owned the power she held. She set clear lines, personal and professional, and announced an independent review to protect everyone involved. When they pushed back, she didn't blink. If my leadership can't survive honesty, she said, then it shouldn't. The silence that followed felt like a cliff edge. She stepped anyway. Daniel watched the press conference on a cracked tablet while Lily colored beside him. He didn't cheer. He breathed. That night, Mara returned to the community center without answers, only presence. She apologized again, not to fix things, but to name them. Daniel listened. He didn't forgive quickly. He told her trust wasn't a speech, it was repetition. She nodded, accepting the long road without trying to pave it. Weeks passed. The noise softened. The real work began. Mara showed up when it didn't benefit her image. Daniel let her see the ordinary: homework meltdowns, budget worries, grief that still knocked without warning. They learned each other's patterns and paused before stepping on old mines. One evening, Lily asked a simple question that felt enormous: "Are you staying?" Mara knelt to Lily's height. "If your dad lets me," she said. Daniel swallowed and nodded. Not because the world had quieted, but because something inside him had. The third chapter closed not with applause, but with a choice repeated daily: patience over panic, truth over theater, and a promise built not on winning, but on staying when leaving would be easier. The quiet after the storm was the hardest part. No headlines, no urgent calls, no rooms waiting to be conquered, just mornings that demanded consistency. Mara learned that love didn't announce itself, it showed up on time. She traded late-night strategy sessions for early breakfasts, listening to Lily explain her spelling words with the seriousness of a professor. Daniel watched her try, fail, try again, and something in him softened. Not trust, trust was still growing, but respect, earned in small, stubborn moments. The real test arrived disguised as opportunity. Mara's company was opening a new division overseas, role tailored for her: prestige, expansion, the kind of move that once would have defined her year. It came with a schedule that erased weekends and a distance that turned promises thin. She brought the offer to Daniel like a fragile thing, laying it on the table without selling it. "I don't want to decide without you," she said. It was the first time she'd ever said that sentence to anyone. Daniel didn't answer right away. He thought of Lily's school plays, of routines that healed, of a life finally steady enough to breathe. He thought of the man he'd been when leaving felt safer than staying. "I won't ask you to shrink," he said finally. "But I won't stretch my daughter's world until it tears." The words were careful, loving, firm. Mara nodded, tears threatening but controlled. She asked for a night. She spent it at the chessboard, not to play, but to remember. She saw the pattern she'd lived by: sacrifice presence for progress, connection for control. In the morning, she declined the role. Not dramatically. Just clearly. She proposed a structure that kept her close and empowered others. The board resisted. She held. For the first time, success didn't taste like adrenaline. It tasted like peace. Life didn't turn cinematic. It turned real. There were hard days and awkward holidays, moments when grief resurfaced and money ran tight. Mara learned to ask for help. Daniel learned to accept it without shame. Lily became the truest judge of all. When she started setting an extra plate without being asked, they knew something had settled into place. On a cool afternoon at the park, Daniel brought the old chess set. They played slowly, laughing when they blundered, pausing to watch Lily chase leaves. When Mara tipped her king over, she didn't smirk. She smiled. "I'm learning," she said. Daniel reached into his pocket and held out a simple ring: no cameras, no dares, no crowd. "No challenges," he said. "No games." Mara slipped it on, hands steady, eyes bright. "I choose this," she said. And in that moment, the lesson became clear and lasting: the bravest move isn't the fastest win, it's the one you make when you're willing to stay, build, and love without conditions, all the way to the end.